Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary, and I'm here with my beautiful wife. Say hi, boo.
Hi everyone, I'm Akdi. I'm from Turkey, and today we are reviewing Godzilla Minus One.
Yes, and also we are officially switching platforms. Before we were doing these movie reviews on X, formerly known as Twitter, but it has now become like this right-wing cesspool of just degeneracy and anti-black hatred and the worst things you could imagine on the internet. So why not switch to a platform that's black owned, support black creators, support black digital content entrepreneurs. Shout out to Isaac Hayes III for starting this platform. And even though it's a bit more difficult to do these podcasts here, I want to still make the effort to show that we're not going to support anything that is contrary to our values. So actually, I'm glad that you wanted to make this switch with me. And yeah, any comments on that?
Yeah, I don't know. X kind of feels like 9gag or 4chan now, which is kind of scary, but I'm glad that we're doing it in a more ethical platform
Yeah.
and a platform that has less bigots.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
glad.
Yeah, definitely. Twitter X is now 4chan, 9gag, like you said, but it's getting even worse because now it's affecting our real life. Like we are now living with the consequences of letting white South Africans dictate American discourse and content and politics. It's just a mess. It's bad. But back to the movies. We are here to review Godzilla Minus One. It's a 2023 film, and I can say that I really enjoyed it. We watched it this morning, about maybe 30 minutes ago, and it was really epic. I'm a big Godzilla fan. I haven't watched every single film, but it's a part of my childhood, and I can say I really have a lot to say about it. But how did you feel after we watched it?
Yeah, so I've never seen a Godzilla movie before because I'm not like that much of a fan of this kind of movies like King Kong or Godzilla or even Alien, which like we watched a couple of weeks ago for the first time. I watched it as well. But I have to say it's just for me like it's too unrealistic. And I know it's supposed to be a fantasy. I get it, but I don't know. It's not really my cup of tea. Though I would appreciate like all the effects that they used.
Right,
That was like pretty cool, especially the last parts of the movie. I was like, how to say, affected by that.
right.
So I'll say that.
I think maybe you weren't into the first half because maybe it was a bit melodramatic, a bit slow, and also with the constant threat of Godzilla, it makes it seem like, oh, this is just another action adventure horror film, and it doesn't have a lot of gravity to it. Is that right? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, the thing it was leading up to, I knew it was gonna be like humans versus Godzilla, and for me, it just like didn't really make sense.
Hmm.
Like, because I don't know, like the first time or the second time we see Godzilla, it feels like a creature that cannot be destroyed.
Hmm.
And I just felt like everything that happened was sort of like romanticizing this fight, which
Hmm.
was like very unrealistic for me. So I was like, okay, like if this happened in real life, we're all dead.
I mean, to some degree, Godzilla, I think, represents war. He represents like the force of nature that is unstoppable, right? And I think it's not a coincidence that Godzilla comes from the sea, right? And the sea for Japan has been a source of like power, but also a source of like tragedy because because they're an island nation, they're subject to tsunamis, they're subject to typhoons and stuff like that. But also at the same time, because Japan is an island, they've been able to build up a great military. They created a great culture and civilization where they were able to project power. So it's like Godzilla represents, that force that's unstoppable, but also the power that lies in the sea. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I understand the sort of like symbolism for what Godzilla stands for, obviously, but I don't know. I just can't get down with it. Like, oh, there's this like ancient dinosaur who's been like living. up until this point, but no one saw it. You know, it's like
Hmm.
it's giving me like Loch Ness monster vibes.
Okay. We're going to talk about the story, but just to talk about like how Godzilla is portrayed in this film. So we see kind of like two different versions of Godzilla. The first Godzilla that we see is sort of like a baby Godzilla, and yeah, he's like this ancient monster that comes up, but he has a more natural look to him. And then later in the film, after like the nuclear bomb is dropped on Japan, Godzilla becomes like kind of fat. He gets kind of thick. Like Godzilla looks like he got a BBL, and he also got the thighs to match, and he's got like man boobs and stuff in the belly. So like Godzilla becomes a bit like twisted and made unnatural by human interference, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, Godzilla gets like a nuclear makeover, and now, like she's shooting radiation from herself. I don't know if
Mhm.
it's a girl or a boy.
I think that's another interesting thing. I think it wouldn't be wrong to gender Godzilla as female.
Yeah, because he doesn't. I mean, she doesn't have a dick, so
Yeah.
I guess like that would make sense. But it's also kind of sexist. Like it's like female rage.
I guess
Like,
so.
is that supposed to be us during that period? Because Godzilla comes up every once in a month.
Wow, wow. Like every month Godzilla comes and rages in Japan,
Yeah,
PMSing. But I think like Godzilla, like I said, represents nature, but also represents like how man can sort of twist nature and distort it, and the vengeance that can happen because of that, the rage that can happen because of that too. So that's how I imagine it.
yeah, yeah. No, I get it because I think it's also tied to like the government sort of keeping this kind of stuff secret,
Hmm.
just not to cause chaos, but at the same time, it's like risking our lives,
Hmm.
right? Because we cannot be prepared something like that in a
Yeah.
short time.
Yeah.
So I think it was like when the Godzilla is hit with the nuclear bomb, I think it was the Japanese government
Hmm.
trying to keep it under control, but instead they created something even worse.
Right, because we're trying to destroy this monster that's unstoppable. But the people in this film have been hurt by another monster that felt unstoppable. The government that was making them, fly their planes into enemy ships, risking their own lives, fighting in tanks that didn't have proper equipment. Going out into the battlefield with only oh so many bullets. Right. So there's two types of monsters, and I think this classic story of man defeating monster, it always represents something more. The monster within us, the monster that we live with all the time that we don't view as monsters. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm gonna add to it. I think there's three types of monsters
Mm,
in this movie because the first one is the war, right? Another country attacking Japan, and I guess it was the U.S.
mm-hmm,
In this movie, and then they cannot turn to their own government because the own government is sparing their lives, is
mm-hmm,
not sparing their lives and sending them out to the field to die.
mm-hmm.
And they cannot also like turn to this nature monster, I guess. They cannot even like turn to the nature because yeah, it's a monster as well.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they're
So
like trapped in every way.
yeah, they're fighting on all sides, and that's the crazy part about it. That's the sad part about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but going on and talking about the monster part of this, before we started this live stream, you said something very funny. Can you repeat it one more time?
Well, so I watched The Alien for the first time, and today I watched Godzilla for the first time. And I think Alien was better than Godzilla.
Hmm.
And
Alien
Alien
Romulus, by
Romulus,
the way,
yeah. Because,
which I
like, I
find
don't
funny.
know. I was just more into Alien, and it feels like maybe because it's futuristic, that's why it feels more possible,
Hmm.
even though it doesn't still, but it's just like a bit more possible than Godzilla because, yeah, if there was an ancient dinosaur monster, I think we probably would have seen it by now.
Right. Yeah, well, of course, acting. There's no like giant monsters in the sea. Of course, like once again, I don't think Godzilla is reaching for realism, but Godzilla is a thalassophobic film, right? It is a film about, the sea in a sense, like we don't know what's in there, which is terrifying to a lot of people. It's funny because I had a Japanese student in Peru who used to tell me, he was very scared of the sea. He never swam in the ocean. And Peru has like a beautiful coastline with great beaches and stuff like that. And he said he never once like put his feet in the ocean because he's that scared of it. And yeah, the thing about the Alien film, right? I didn't get a chance to get this take off when we were talking about Alien, but I gotta say, like, I think what makes the xenomorph scary is that it comes from within us, and it's like this terrible being that's unleashed whenever we just have the right conditions that make it be born, right? And
Yeah.
Godzilla is scary in the sense that it's living amongst us and we distort it every day by polluting nature. Like Godzilla is like the story of us, dropping so much radioactive waste in the ocean that eventually the ocean sends something back out to us to bite us in the ass. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess if you think about it like that, it makes more sense.
Hmm.
But at the same time, maybe like the disconnect I had with this movie was that, like you said, it's something, yeah, like you can make a connection with Godzilla, with the sea and the nature, but like in all simplicity, it's something that's like outside. It's not something we created it specifically, at least not in the beginning.
Right.
So like when we watch like I don't know Jurassic Park or Alien, it's something we created. So it has like a deeper meaning than something that's already been there
Mhm.
that we have to fight for. And yeah, like we made it worse, but still.
Yeah, I get that. We didn't exactly make Godzilla, but we sort of made it even worse, right? It's like global warming. Godzilla is global warming or our polluted oceans or our dirty air. The earth is naturally built for us to survive in it, and there's also things in it that can kill us. Sharks, bears, polar bears, gonorrhea. You know what I mean? Like there's
What?
things there's things on earth that are meant to kill us, but it's a part of nature. But we make it even worse by putting carbon dioxide in the air, microplastics in the ocean, and not wearing condoms and getting gonorrhea. You get what I'm saying?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I mean I guess we have to like agree to disagree.
I
But I
got
do
you.
get your point of view. I get it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But let's talk about this film. So the movie opens up with this guy flying a plane, and it takes place in 1945 in Japan. At this time in history, Japan was in a war, allied with the Nazi powers in Germany, and was also fighting a war in the Pacific against the United States. And this pilot is a kamikaze pilot. His name is Koichi, and he's landing on this island called Odo. And he says to the mechanics that are there on the island, "Hey, my plane is messed up. I think it needs help. I couldn't finish my kamikaze mission," which is when he's supposed to fly his plane into ships and blow himself up. And the mechanics are looking at it and they're checking and they say, "There's nothing wrong here. I smell pussy." and so they, and so they go to Koichi and say, "Hey, there's nothing wrong with your ship." And Koichi is like, "I'm sorry." And then Koichi goes and sits by the bay of the water, kind of like by himself, ashamed. And then this other Japanese guy comes up to him and he's like, "I understand how you feel. Why die honorably this late in the war when we already know that we're going to lose, right?" And Koichi is listening to this guy, and he's looking out at the bay, and he sees like all these dead creatures floating up. But my first reaction was like, that's spunk. That looks like those look like semen cells or something.
Well, I mean, you can't say it's semen now because Godzilla is a woman.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so who knows what it was? But anyway, he looks out in the sea and he sees all these dead fish floating up, and he's like, "What is that?" Any comments on that first opening scene?
Yeah, I just want to also add maybe also one reason I couldn't fully connect to the movie was that like the main character was a soldier and
Hmm.
a lot of the characters were soldiers and even though yeah, like, what they're doing for every country is honorable, like whatever, I would just never be someone who would fight for any nation.
Hmm.
And yeah, I would never be a kamikaze pilot, let alone like I just would never fight for any nation because it doesn't make sense. But yeah, maybe also that's why. But yeah, just imagining like him having this psychological warfare within himself as well. Like, you know,
Well,
is it?
it's an extreme thing to do, right? The emperor says you fly your plane into the boat and die, right? Like, bro,
Yeah.
we got bombs, we got guns. You want me to kill myself? You know what I mean? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just like so like I don't know, so insane. Like this idea of kamikaze pilot being in a kamikaze and things like that. I would definitely like do the same thing that he did.
Hmm.
Or I would just like fly to the Bahamas, just chill there until the war is over and things like
Hmm.
that. So I definitely like sympathize with him
Hmm.
in terms of like not, continuing his death mission basically.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine being in that situation. I remember watching a video like maybe last year or so about what happened to the kamikaze pilots that didn't do the mission because it actually happened more frequently than you imagine. Yeah, basically they would lie and say, "Oh, the plane doesn't work," or they would actually crash land into the sea and try to swim to a safe boat or something like that. But when they got found out by their captains or the army, they would get a lot of shame. Some of them would go to prison, some of them would be executed, and others would be forced to get back in a plane and do it again. Right? So yeah, it's a wild situation to be in, and yeah, I feel for Koichi in that situation.
Yeah, and especially like I've been also reading Catch 22.
Hmm.
But and like that book is just basically about how ridiculous the war is and
Hmm.
how nothing makes sense in the war.
Hmm.
And like being a soldier is not someone who's stable basically. And yeah, so like that combined with this movie, it's just making it more ridiculous for me.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say ridiculous. Once again, I think it's based in a lot of realism. But before we continue, I have to say I like the way this film is shot. Like the cinematography, everything feels really alive, and a lot of this film is based on the sea. And I just really like seeing how the waves crash against the coast on Odo, and the sun shines, and all this sort of stuff. Like this film looks beautiful, right? And it looks exactly like the time is trying to portray too. I felt like I was watching a film shot in HD, but in 1945, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like the cinematography, the effects, the music, everything was good with this movie. Like if
Hmm.
we're thinking of the production
Yeah.
and the direction, just like the idea isn't off for me, but everything
Hmm.
else was very good. I agree.
Got you. All right. So later on that night, Koichi is like sleeping, and all the other mechanics are sleeping, and they just hear this loud like roar in the background. And Koichi wakes up. All the other guys wake up, and Koichi's like, "What's that?" And one of the other guys tells him it's Godzilla. The islanders here in Oda told us that there's this monster that comes every now and then. And there's this guy on the watchtower who turns on the light, and then we see Godzilla like a Tyrannosaurus Rex just roaring, screaming, and he like destroys the watchtower. All the guys are like panicking. They run to this dugout, and the lead mechanic is saying to Koichi, "Hey, you're a pilot, you're a fighter. You should get in that plane and shoot the gun at Godzilla because that gun can kill anything." Koichi's like, "But what if I shoot it and make it angrier?" And the mechanic says to Koichi, "Shut up, bitch." Stop being pussy. Stop being pussy. The number one villain in this film is Koichi's pussiness in a lot of ways, and we're going to build on that. But Koichi gets in the airplane, and Godzilla is like walking in front, but Koichi refuses to shoot. Like his hands start shaking, right? And the guys in the dugout start to panic as Godzilla gets closer to them, and they start shooting. And Godzilla goes crazy. He's like stomping on them, biting people, and throwing them in the air. And like tossing the guys around like rag dolls. And Koichi like gets out of the plane and like runs to safety, and he passes out while Godzilla is like on his rampage. And he wakes up in the next morning, finds the dead bodies all lined up, and one of the guys is a survivor, and he's like mad at Koichi. He comes up to him and says, "You, how you could have killed him? You could have saved us, but you didn't do anything." He like slaps him up and down. What did you think of those scenes?
Okay. I don't know if I am naive or is it because I never watched a Godzilla movie before. But when Koichi went to the bomb, basically, and he's about to fire it, but he doesn't, and then like basically Godzilla and him make eye contact.
Mm.
And I thought they were gonna be friends. Because like I thought Godzilla was gonna be like, "Oh, you didn't shoot me, so then I'm not gonna kill you, or like you'll be my friend or something like that."
Mm.
I wasn't sure like how Godzilla movies came to be,
Mhm.
or so yeah. I thought maybe it's gonna be like this friendship,
Can I just say there have been some Godzilla movies where Godzilla is the good guy, so that could have been a possibility. Go
like
ahead.
Godzilla was friends with a person.
Like yeah, like humans use Godzilla to fight a different alien or monster, and Godzilla actually is good to people.
Okay. Wow. Anyway, I was thinking, okay, maybe like this is gonna be the premise of the movie.
Hmm.
But obviously it was not, and it was just like Koichi being a pussy. Um, but yeah, it was definitely scary to see Godzilla like destroying everything, and it felt like this monster was unbeatable,
Hmm.
basically. So I
Yeah.
think they did a good job on reflecting that like humans don't really have a chance against this monster, even at that point where Godzilla
Hmm.
was a baby monster.
Yeah. I have a theory because when we see this Godzilla, like we mentioned earlier, it's different than the Godzilla we see later. And the people of Odo know Godzilla, like they know his name or they know that he comes every now and then. So I have a theory that the people of Odo maybe feed Godzilla or do sacrifices to him, treat him like a god or whatever, and they sort of live in balance with nature. In this case, this giant monster that comes. What do you think about that?
Mm. I mean, I that also crossed my mind as well. But I assumed, okay, maybe Godzilla shows up and these people, because they are villagers or something like that, right? They don't have weapons, so they just like hide out
Hmm.
and let Godzilla pass through, and then basically like get out again when Godzilla has
Yeah,
passed. That's
because
what
it's
I
like
thought. I don't think like they fed Godzilla, because what will they feed him?
I don't know, but maybe they leave a certain part of the island for him to like rampage on and rage on and eat whatever he eats. I don't know, but it seems like because that Godzilla is smaller. The Godzilla we see later after he gets hit with that nuke turns up. So yeah, that's my first theory, and then the second theory I have is that Koichi died that night, and the rest of this film is a dream. What do you think about that?
I don't think that's true because of like later psychosis that he has. I guess like because yeah, he
I
has
think it's
like PTSD, and I don't think that's true. Like
I think it's possible that maybe Koichi like if you don't believe that Godzilla is real and this film is like too fantastical, I think you could imagine that Godzilla in this case might have been the Americans storming the island, killing everybody, and Koichi just imagined it was this monster and he ended up dying that night regardless. And the rest of this film is either him in like the afterlife or just a reimagining of what happened in his life had he not died. Because later in the film, he says, "Am I just living a dream? Did I die that night?" You get what I'm saying? So I'm thinking there's that possibility.
I mean, maybe if he's in a coma or something
Hmm.
and he's like imagining this.
Hmm.
But that would make it even less exciting for me because then, like, we're just watching his dream. Like, what is that?
I think this could be a comatic. Is comatic a word? Whatever. A coma dream of a man who saw the worst of war and was on the verge of death. And he's just imagining all the horror that went on around him, but uh, putting it into this monster, right? This unstoppable monster. Instead of it being the Americans with their large ships and heavy artillery and their nuclear weapons, he's just imagining it as this monster. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's a reach, but
Okay.
because, yeah, I don't know. And it's not like making it exciting for me to think of it like that. But I get it. Like that could happen. And also, like, if that was the case, he sort of like mm, makes it, makes a conclusion where he
Hmm.
is the hero and he can, like, he's like condemns himself for all of his sins, basically.
Yeah, like he cleanses himself of his sins and he feels
Yeah.
like, oh, I made peace, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. But anyway, moving on in the story, basically Koichi and the last survivor on the island, they get picked up by the Japanese Navy. And when Koichi is on the boat, the survivor guy hands Koichi what I thought was money before. I thought it was money, but when I looked back at it and how the film develops, he hands Koichi the pictures and names of all the guys who killed who were killed by Godzilla on the island, and as a way of like shaming Koichi to say, look at all these men who lost their lives and no longer can go to their families because of you. Koichi goes back to his village in Japan, and everything is like destroyed. I guess the Americans just straight up bombed everything. And he goes to his old house, and his neighbor, who's a woman named Sumiko, comes here and is like, Koichi, you're alive? You should be fucking dead, you kamikaze pussy bitch. And she starts like slapping him too. Everywhere Koichi goes, like he just gets disrespected because he says like I'm a kamikaze pilot, or people know. And how are you going to be a kamikaze pilot and you're still walking around? So Samiko tells him like, "Oh, your family died too," and he finds a note that was left for him, and his parents, say, "Koichi, come back alive." And so Koichi says to himself, "Come back alive? I did. Isn't this what you wanted?" And so, Koichi is like trying to put his life back together. And he's one day at the market, and there's this woman running with a baby in her hand, being chased by men saying, "Stop, stop that thief." And so Koichi stands in front of the woman. The woman looks Koichi dead in the eyes and says, "Yeah, I can leave my baby with this weak man." Just looking in his eyes, she could tell like this man is soft. So she like leaves the baby in his hands and she keeps running. Koichi is about to like leave the baby at the market, but then like he finds some at least a part of his spine and like picks the baby up. And the woman meets him at the end of the market and says, "Oh, thank you for saving this baby," and stuff like that. And we find out that the baby's name is Aniko and the woman's name is Nomiko. And basically, Nomiko just found this baby abandoned and she's been taking care of it. And now she just won't leave Koichi alone. Like, Koichi's like, "Can you please leave my house?" And she's like, okay. But what did you think about any of those scenes?
Yeah, it was definitely devastating to see like Koichi come back home and see all of his like town is basically in shambles, right?
Hmm.
And also like the neighbor sort of like treating him badly because he survived or he's alive.
Hmm.
I thought that was very sad because, yeah, like I would imagine if you fought at a war and then also saw something like Godzilla, when you come home, you want someone to hug you and show you some love and be happy that you're alive and you made it and things like that.
Yeah, but
But
imagine Koichi tells Samiko, "No, no, listen, I swear to God, I was about to be a kamikaze pilot, but this giant lizard killed me and all of my friends. It tried to kill me and everybody I know." She would have slapped him even harder. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean, she wouldn't have believed him. And I think he wasn't even like, I think he was also still in shock.
Hmm.
Maybe, but yeah, it was very sad like to see him, and I thought like, damn, like this man, maybe he's like a coward and a softy, but he's also very, strong in a
Hmm.
mental like self in a mental way, because I would have like maybe committed suicide at that moment. Like
Hmm.
I just survived a war and I
Yeah.
survived a giant lizard, and yet no one wants me. Like
And
everyone
my
wishes
parents
I
are
was
dead.
dead, you
Yeah,
know?
and my parents are like gone. Go ahead.
Yeah. And when it comes to like the Akiko, like the baby, and Noriko, the woman, it was a bit cliche. I gotta say, like baby left with Koichi and things like that. Though at the same time, I couldn't help but think like y'all need a woman and a
Mm.
baby to like pull yourself up together.
Mm.
Like why is that?
I think. with Koichi, like he was looking for a replacement family. And I think, one of the themes of this film is like after a tragedy like war, families are totally destroyed. Like when I was watching this part of the film when Koichi went back home, I couldn't help but think of Gaza. I couldn't help but think of Sudan. I
Yeah.
couldn't help but think of so many other war zones, Ukraine, whatever, right? Where whole entire families get broken up or killed and people have to put the pieces back together. And the desire for family in human life, uh, makes people just find bonds wherever. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's one of the themes I think is heavy in this film. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. It also made me think of like the war zones right now.
Hmm.
And that's why I think also I was a bit annoyed with Koichi because I was thinking, like, you have this opportunity where you could help, these two human beings who very desperately need help. And you can, like, start fresh in a sense and just, like, be there for them and things like that. And he was, like, constantly refusing to do that, at least in the beginning. So, yeah, that was a bit annoying to watch, like, him to act that way.
Hmm. Hmm. No, I wasn't annoyed by Koichi at all throughout this film. I was just a bit like, sort of like rooting for him. I might make fun of Koichi for being a softie or pussy throughout this, but generally I'm rooting for him to grow and develop because I sympathize with his situation. Being forced to kill yourself for a war that couldn't be won. So I
Yeah,
feel
I
for him.
mean, I wasn't annoyed at like with him throughout the whole movie.
Hmm.
Just that part when he was sort of, I don't know, he was like very. I understand, I guess, because of the war and everything like that, he might not want to love someone, or I don't know, become very stoic.
Hmm.
But at the same time, yeah, it's kind of hard to not when you have like a cute baby and a nice, nice girl.
Okay. All right, but anyway, so Koichi and Nomiko end up shacking up together with the baby, and he's basically living in his a shack, like whatever is left. And he's leaving the house one day, and Sumiko, the neighbor, says, "Hey, where you going?" And he's like, "I'm going to find work, I guess." And hey, about that girl and the baby, does that girl even know how to breastfeed, or can she even breastfeed? And Koichi says, that's not her baby. So no. And so Sumiko comes over and gives them food, gives them the last piece of rice that she has, and says, "This is only for the baby, not for you. You two got to eat grass and leaves, whatever." And so, and so, yeah, Koichi ends up getting like a job finding mines that were left by the Americans in the ocean, and they're going to demine the ocean. And at first Nomiko is like very scared because it's like you could die doing this, but the pay is so good that Koichi sort of has no choice. So he makes it to the boat, and then he meets like his new best friends. It's like the smart Japanese guy with like gray curly hair, the older Japanese guy who's like the captain of the ship, this young guy who was too young to fight in the war, and like I think there was another guy there too, but I forgot. Is it those three or four, right?
Yeah, I think those four of them,
Yeah.
like the tall guy, the young guy, the curly haired smart guy, and then Kochi.
Yeah, yeah. So Koichi like introduces himself. He says, "Yeah, I was a pilot in the war." They said, "Oh, pilot, that's cool." He doesn't mention he's a kamikaze yet. They go out to sea and they explain the process to him. They show, how they cut the mines off from the ropes that tie them down, and then they have to shoot at them with this gun to make the mines explode. And Koichi, because he was a pilot, he has better aim than the other guys, so he quickly becomes the shooter on the ship. And they start forming bonds and stuff like that. Koichi starts making money, and eventually there's like this brief little montage where they end up moving into like this bigger house. Koichi, Nomiko, and Akiko, and yeah, it's life becomes a little bit better for Koichi. And yeah, any comments on that?
Yeah, I think once again, like here, we have that government factor, like how our nations don't really care for us,
Hmm.
because Koichi is this man who just came back from a war, and on top of everything that he has to deal with, he has to worry about like providing food for himself and for like his new family, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So he has to once again risk his life to earn money. And even though, like, they did the montage and, oh, like they were happy, hunting mines in the ocean, it's still like a very risky job in reality. And that was like definitely sad to watch. And also, like, sort of made me angry,
Mm-hmm.
against life and government and the system and everything.
Right.
So yeah, that was like the biggest part. And also, like, one of the saddest part is like once he starts earning good money, he sort of like forgets about it. Not that he forgets about it, but I understand he has to keep on living. Like he
Mm-hmm.
cannot, be worried about it all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how sort of like the system gets us, I
Yeah.
guess, because we have to survive.
I mean, on one hand, I think if you're going to do anything after a war, it's sort of like the best thing to do would be to pick up the pieces. Mines are a dangerous thing. There are so many countries in the world that had wars in the past where people still die from mines to this day. Like in Bosnia, there's a bunch of mines that are unexploded, Vietnam, Cambodia, and those things still kill people. So I actually like the idea of like demining the place. And but yeah, there is that sort of monologue on the ship, like where the guys are talking, like, yeah, our government doesn't really like care about us, and they sort of wasted our lives, you know?
Yeah, because, yeah, of course, the mines should be cleared out, but these were soldiers in the war, and then after the war ends, they still have to do the war's dirty work, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Right, right. But yeah, basically, there's the scene later where the guys find out that Nomiko is not Koichi's wife, and that Akiko is not his daughter. Akiko says "daddy" to Koichi at the dinner table, and he looks her dead in the eyes and says, "Akiko, I ain't your daddy. I ain't your daddy, girl." And the rest of the guys are like, "Oh, come on, Koichi, that's so cruel." And he's like, "What? I don't care." And yeah, why do you think he did that though? Like, why do you think he didn't want to embrace Nomiko and Akiko as like family? Why didn't he try to secure the bag?
I think maybe he was scared that he would have to protect them, and that he wouldn't be able to like sacrifice himself for them or something like that. Like that sort of trauma that he had,
Hmm.
or it could even just be like he didn't want to like form those sorts of bonds, or he already formed it, but he didn't want to name it just in case if he loses them again, then he has to, go through the pain of losing another family, just like
Hmm.
his parents.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. He didn't want to lose his new family, so no attachments, right? That's
Yeah.
sort of like similar to me. Like I don't have a lot of friends because like I've been through so much with my other friends. Like I've had my friends pass away, I've had my friends move far away, I've had fallouts with friends. So it's like I don't try to build those deep connections with people because I don't want to be hurt. You know what I mean?
Aw, Simon.
I just have to share that because I'm relating to this film in a lot of ways, and it makes me think about a lot of different things too. But
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, though, with his case, obviously, even though he doesn't want it and he fights against not forming those bonds, they are still formed.
yeah, they're still formed. Yep. So I think after that scene at the dinner table, there's the nuclear explosion that happens in Japan and at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And the nuclear explosion, we see it hit the city, and then we see like the nuclear fallout sort of land on Godzilla's skin. And there's like that brief moment where we know Godzilla was affected by that uh, destruction. And then I believe after that, there's like this montage of like U.S. military maps and ships saying like they were attacked by this giant monster in the sea. And even though the U.S. government that's now controlling Japan wants to try to stop this monster that's destroying these ships, they don't want to bring in the heavy guns because they don't want to have conflict with the Soviet Union, which is right there. So yeah, basically the Americans came to Japan to rebuild it after the war and to make sure it didn't become a communist nation. But they also at the same time don't want to kick the hornet's nest by pissing off the Russians. So they basically tell the Japanese, "You're on your own. You're on your own. Good luck." And on top of that, what makes it even worse is that Japan at this time, and still I believe to this day, is a demilitarized country. Japan officially does not have an army. That was like a part of their truce agreement with the Americans. So I think that's what makes this film even more interesting because all the ships that we see that are shooting at Godzilla, all the bombs and stuff they drop on him, they have to come from other countries. They have to find other ways of fighting Godzilla than with guns because the Japanese had their guns taken away. So yeah, any
Mm.
comments on those scenes?
First of all, I just would like to say if that's true, I think it is that Japan is a demilitarized country. I think that's very cool
Mm,
to do because almost every country around the world has an army, and I think it like requires big balls to do that.
mm.
So yeah,
But the thing about Japan's demilitarization, it was kind of like forced on them. You know, it was like
yeah,
you cannot have another army because every time you did, you became kind of crazy. You started
mm.
empires and stuff. But
Well, it's still not a bad thing,
no,
but yeah.
it's not a bad thing. I agree with demilitarization as a concept. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I guess like this sort of shows the diversity of this movie. Like it also hints to political actions that happened. And yeah, it also sort of like tells us if there isn't anything you can gain from it, other countries won't help you. Like
Hmm.
what's happening in Gaza right now, or
Yeah.
also in Ukraine, right? If
Hmm.
there's a possibility of creating a bigger conflict, or if you are earning money from something, then no one's going to help you and you're on your own. And
Yeah.
once again, the governments have to depend on their own people that they've been treating so badly.
Yeah, and I think another part of that, what makes it interesting is that, Japan is sort of caught in the middle of these two larger powers now. And it used to be a major player, it used to be a strong military force, but now it's like everything was stripped away. And the people that caused Godzilla to get even worse, even bigger, even more badder, now they don't want to take responsibility for what they've created. So
Yeah,
it's like once again the monster comes from within us, and it's usually left to the little people to deal with it.
yeah,
It makes me
definitely.
it makes me think of that African saying, when the elephants fight, only the grass gets hurt. You know,
Mm.
it's that's what it seems to me.
Yeah, it's definitely like even though these are soldiers, the whole
Hmm.
story is definitely like people's fight. It's the common people fighting to survive.
Yeah, yeah. But moving on in the story, speaking of survival, common person here, Nomiko says, "I'm going to get a job." So Koichi comes home one day and he sees this cute girl he's been laying up with finally got a job. And he's like, "What you mean, woman? I ain't taking care of you?" And she's like, "No, Koichi, I just want to be independent. I want to do my own thing." And I think I might have skipped over a scene or two, but there was a very important scene when like Koichi was having like flashbacks of Godzilla rampaging on the island, and he woke up in cold sweats. And Nomiko tries to take care of him at night, and he's just having like PTSD, and saying, "Is this all a dream? I'm such a failure. I'm such a bad person." And so moving on in the story, Nomiko says, "I'm going to get a job in Ginza. I'm just going to earn some money, and Akiko is going to be taken care of by Sumiko, the next door neighbor." And Koichi has nothing else to do but accept it. And I think also like the same day, like she's going to Ginza to her job, is the day that Godzilla comes to Tokyo or comes to the mainland, and he starts rampaging in the city. And I believe also at that time, Koichi was in the city, right? He was going to Ginza as well. Or no, he heard about Godzilla going in the city, and he rushes down there to try to save Nomiko. Is that what
Yeah.
happens?
Yeah, just before that, not to skip over, they also have a battle in the sea with Godzilla,
Oh
like their
yeah.
mining ship. They have a
Uh-huh.
small battle, I guess.
Oh. Yeah, I totally skipped over that scene. Can you talk about that one?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, one day they are like uh, doing their regular jobs, mining the bombs in the sea, and they see the dead fish again.
Hmm.
And yeah, basically Godzilla shows up, and I think I'm not exactly sure, but I think the older guy with curly hair, he knew that they were actually sent there to spot Godzilla, right?
Yeah.
That's what I understood from it, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah. No, they talk amongst themselves and they realize that they're there to like lure Godzilla out, monitor it, and stuff like that. And the government sort of knew this might be a suicide mission, but didn't inform everybody. So they sort of sent them out there to die, and to some degree.
Yeah. But basically, what happens is like, yeah, the Godzilla, like, starts chasing them, and they're like trying to throw the bombs into his mouth or something like that. Like,
Hmm.
they're just trying to get him. And then once nothing is working, a warship shows up and they start bombing Godzilla as well. But Godzilla is like, nope, that shit don't work on me. And like
Right.
he rebuilds his self, like his skin, like recovers,
Hmm.
and basically attacks the warship.
Hmm.
Right, and then just as they think that they're gonna like get killed by Godzilla, Koichi fires the bomb that didn't work in his mouth, and he
Yeah.
gets like somewhat not destroyed, but
Well,
he gets like injured.
Well, yeah. Let me break it down. So, like, yeah, the ship that is coming to save them is coming from Singapore because once again, Japan doesn't have any ships or warships anymore, so they have to get help from outside. So they're trying to race away and hope that the ship from Singapore comes in time to save them. Koichi fires the gun at the bomb in Godzilla's mouth. It blows Godzilla's fucking face off, but he regenerates like Wolverine. And then when Godzilla's really pissed, he stands up in the ocean. Now, you and I were both really kind of upset how Godzilla stands up in the ocean like a full man, like standing on a very shallow
Like
beach.
Moses.
Yeah, like it's kind of annoying. But right when Godzilla stands up in the ocean and he's about to, kill Koichi and his friends, the Singapore ship shows up, shoots at Godzilla, and then Godzilla goes and wrecks that ship. And the Singapore ship like shoots Godzilla and he falls down in the sea. But then that's when we see Godzilla use his nuclear breath powers to blow the ship up. And Koichi and his crew are looking like, whoa. So yeah, what did you think of that sequence?
Yeah, once again, it was kind of like weird how Godzilla was standing in the sea. And it didn't make sense, and I'm like, okay, like, because we see him swimming, which looks natural, right?
Hmm.
But then like, how are you going to be like standing on 2 feet
Hmm.
and eating people and stuff? And at first I thought, okay, maybe like he's stepping on the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah,
But not, because like he's not that big. Plus
yeah,
later on in the movie, that like theory sort of fails.
yeah. They sink him in the bottom of the sea where originally he was standing. I have two theories on how he can stand in the sea. His tail moves at like a million miles a second, so he's like flapping, and we can't see it. Or he's got like a very cushiony butt, like his butt is like just full of air, and he's able to like float on it like a pillow.
Yeah, I think my theory is like sort of like his skin or something in his body makes him float. Like
Okay,
that's my theory, because we see his tail also wiggling out of the sea. So
okay.
like how is it gonna like keep him at top? I don't know. But
BBL Zilla.
like I don't know, like even if like we also float in the sea, right? Like if we don't do anything, we'll be floating.
Yeah, but our
Uh,
heads are out. Like how it should have been is like Godzilla's head should have just been like out of the water.
yeah, like he should have been like swimming frog style, you know?
Yeah. But that's
Like
not as scary. That's not as scary just to see a big ass Godzilla head.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So that part was a bit ridiculous for me.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, after that scene, yeah, thank you for bringing up because that's one of the best scenes in the film and one of the coolest. I really like how in this film, like we see Godzilla clearly. There have been other Godzilla movies where they try to like hide the monster or like wait till the end to have the big reveal. I like how in this film, Godzilla is like a terrorist that shows up randomly. You see the full picture of his monstrosity, and then like he's gone. Like I love that, and I also like how we see his eyes and his face. He has the
Mm.
eyes and facial expressions of like a very sad pit bull. Like
Aw.
there's something about his face that makes me say that is a monstrous demon, but there's some heart in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he just wants to be loved.
He wants a Godzilla hug.
But no, I agree. Like the way that they made him, like
Hmm.
effects wise, it was very scary, but also realistic in
Yeah,
that like sense that also we saw Godzilla like up close, and it wasn't just like a blob of a monster.
yeah,
Like they
yeah.
did pay attention to every like detail of his body, basically.
Yes, yes,
So
and
that was pretty cool.
yes, and now I remember also in the film after that, the government knows that Godzilla is coming, but decides not to tell the people because they don't want the people to panic. And
Yeah.
then we get to the part where Koichi has like flashbacks, and then also like Nomiko gets the job in Ginza, and then Godzilla comes again, right?
Yeah, basically, like Koichi ends up in the hospital, and his like shipmates tell him, Shh, "Don't tell anyone," because people are gonna, go insane.
Hmm.
So Koichi is like holding this in himself, but when he gets home, he has to share it with Noriko.
Yeah,
And that's when like he sort of also shares his trauma,
yeah.
like of what he did in the war. Like he couldn't fly the kamikaze because he wanted to stay alive, but
Hmm.
then he saw Godzilla,
Hmm.
and all of his story basically.
Yeah.
And
I,
yeah, basically we also then know that Koichi is like battling to know if this is real or not.
hmm.
And they're like when Noriko says like this is real life and your life and everyone who survived deserves to live, or something
Mm.
like that. And Koichi is just like, I don't know, like if I'm just dreaming and I'm dead.
Yeah, yeah. There's that's deep right there. Like what Nomiko says, like deserves to live, and also like what the guys on the ship say, like our government doesn't care about us. Because I feel like in this film, it's confronting maybe this collective guilt that the survivors of the war have. Like maybe they didn't fight hard enough. Maybe they didn't die with honor on the battlefield, and they feel like their lives are empty. Which I think maybe a lot of people feel after a war, but maybe even more so in Japan because they have that, samurai culture, bushido culture, stuff like that too. I don't know. What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
Yeah, definitely there is survival's guilt. Just even because, like, just like the rest of the world, Japan is also a patriarchal, country.
Hmm.
And I think especially this is like back then when, they were fighting with America and stuff like that. So there's that,
There's
like
that
that
idea
pressure
like the
of being
man,
like a man. Yeah.
yeah, man, you got to die out there.
Yeah, and I think also this a little bit reveals like why Koichi was so distant to Noriko and Akiko, even
Hmm.
though they've become a family, because he said something like, "I don't deserve this,"
Hmm.
because it looks like they have a nice family, and he's
Hmm.
like, "I don't deserve family."
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
during that scene too, when he's telling Nomiko this, like the pictures spill out of the folder of all the guys in Odo who died. So it's like he's carrying those ghosts with him. And so when he sees those dead faces, he's looking at his own life like, why did I deserve this when I'm the coward and they were brave soldiers? They shot their guns.
yeah, and like the saddest part is those soldiers were about to go back home.
Hmm.
So they sort of like got destroyed by Godzilla when their war was over.
Mm,
But yeah,
yeah.
they couldn't. But after like that, the morning after, I think like Koichi feels better because he just like sort of released that trauma a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, he sort of like just deals with it day by day, which I think maybe a lot of guys do after traumatic events. Like, yeah, I cried at night like a baby to my baby mama, but I'm outside now. What? So yeah. All right, now we'll get to the Ginza scene, which is like so traditional Godzilla. Like thick Godzilla shows up out of the sea into the city, shaking them hips and thighs and swinging that tail from side to side, stomping through the city, stomping on people, knocking down buildings, and the Japanese people are just running in there. Ah! And like, there's the scene where Godzilla like throws a fucking subway like throws a subway car in front of the train that Nomiko is riding in, and that train like screeches to a halt, and she looks out the window with her eyes wide open and sees like Godzilla, and then the music cues up, dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Hey, oh god, that's is that not top 10 like cinematic music? Like that's so classic.
Yeah, that was definitely like, even though I've never watched Godzilla, I know that song. And that was very good, very good. It
Uh,
definitely added like so much more to the tension, and it's
yes,
such a beautiful piece.
it is a beautiful piece. I could listen to that and do a little jig. Hell yeah. But Yeah, there was this funny scene when Godzilla was like tearing through the city, and like these Japanese guys are like radio announcers, like reporting on Godzilla, like, oh my God, he's tearing up the theater, he's tearing up the mall, he's coming for us. I don't know what we should do. He's standing right above me. Ah! And then Godzilla just like smacks them down and they fall to their death. That was pretty hilarious. Any comments on any of the, Godzilla city destruction scene?
Yeah, first of all, like the first announcement that they make to the city, that's hilarious as well. Because imagine, like, we're sitting here and we hear an announcement throughout the city saying, so there's like this gargantuous monster approaching, and y'all better evacuate. Like, what will we do? Like, is that, and they're saying, like, this is not a drill.
This is not
Like,
a
oh,
drill.
like it's so not real. I don't
Mhm.
know how people reacted actually, like the people who are in the suburbs that hear it, you know? Like, of course, Koichi grabs, possibly like grabs Akiko, and
Mhm.
he gave her to the other lady,
Tamiko.
Samiko, and then like he goes out to find Noriko. Like, of course, he saw the Godzilla, so he knows what to do. But what
Mhm.
about like all the other people who's like, what
Yeah.
the fuck is Godzilla?
What is that? And like, no matter how fast you run and how slow Godzilla moves, like he could still stomp you in like 3 steps.
Yeah, like because his one step is like 3 kilometers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, impossible to outrun him.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I really actually like the reality of that scene.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, even though this idea of Godzilla is always in the back of my head, that is kind of ridiculous. But at the same time, watching these scenes, I can appreciate like the creativity of it.
I get you, but once again, like if you're looking at a Godzilla film as just, especially this one, maybe the other ones you could look at as ridiculous. Like the first Godzilla film I saw, I was like 12 years old at my uncle's house. He had like nothing but VHSs and DVDs. I saw Godzilla versus Mothra, like the old school one where it was obviously a man in like a rubber suit fighting this like giant butterfly on strings. Like, yeah, that's silly. But like this one is based more like the Godzilla is once again a metaphor. I know that you understand it's a metaphor, but like
Yes, so please stop saying it.
I know. I'm not trying to annoy you, but I'm like, come on, like look at it like as in like, damn, that's like nuclear weapons. That's like a bombing. That's like what's happening in war zones everywhere. You get what
Yeah,
I'm
I
saying?
get it, but it also at the same time, that's why I said I understand the creativity because I understand the meaning behind it. But
Hmm.
at the same time, putting Godzilla in that context sort of takes the blame away from humans.
Yeah.
Because what is war? What is nuclear bombs? They are things done by us to
Hmm.
other people. So,
Hmm.
like, putting that on a creature, to me, it's like desensitizing us to our own evil, if that makes sense.
But I still view Godzilla as a product of human invention, human malfeasance, like just wickedness that we created. Because that Godzilla that destroyed the city, that couldn't happen with the small Godzilla before the nuclear bomb. Sure, Godzilla was still killer and stuff like that, but that thick Godzilla says, "Damn, I can run up in Tokyo now." So there's a difference. Like he got nuked up, he got the BBL, he got the upgrade, and now he's on a rampage. So it's still our fault.
Okay, I told you that we're gonna have to agree to disagree to it.
Okay. Okay. All right. No problem. By the way, shout out to whoever's in the room joining us for our first ever fan based movie review. And by the way, for anybody listening in the playback, you're more than welcome to join us on Fanbase as we talk about these films and send recommendations for us to talk about them. Yeah. Continuing in the story, Nomiko like survives Godzilla's attack because Godzilla like picks up her train that she's in his mouth, but she like jumps into the sea, and then eventually like Nomiko and Koichi meet up in the city, and Godzilla is like facing off against these tanks that are like shooting at him, but then like he does the charge up with his tail, and each spike in his tail turns blue and inches up his spine until it reaches his head, and then he shoots like this nuclear powered blast, and that like basically destroys all the city. And Nomiko pushes Koichi into an alleyway to protect him, and she gets blown away like a leaf. And Koichi comes out of the wreckage, looks at Godzilla and all the carnage that has happened. Godzilla screams into the sky, and Koichi like screams at him. Any comments on that?
Okay, I'm sorry, but there's just too many plot holes
Oh God.
in this scene. Okay, first of all, so we see. Okay, so basically, what happens is Noriko pushes Koichi in between like two buildings,
Mm-hmm.
and while every fucking building in the city is getting torn down, that building is okay. And it protects Koichi. Noriko flies like a leaf, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I guess we're imagining that Godzilla has nuclear powers now.
Mm-hmm.
I like how like they activate him. He looks like a machine, which
Mm-hmm.
furthermore supports like this creature only got stronger and more deadly because of us.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the war machines we create in the real
Mm-hmm.
world, right? I
Mm-hmm.
like that, but this bitch just like blew insane nuclear power breath
Mm-hmm.
into the city that destroyed everything. So I feel like everyone who was exposed that closely with Godzilla should have been like burned down to their skeletons in
Mm-hmm.
real life, because that's what nuclear bombs do or nuclear power do.
Mm-hmm.
And then like also Koichi like is screaming at Godzilla at the end when he gets out, and he basically I don't know, screams at him and he's crying while there's nuclear rain raining down.
Yeah.
I feel like that should have burned his skin off. I'm not saying that's because I want that, but that's just like the reality of it.
I think it's possible it might not have been acid rain or nuclear rain. It could have just been like dust and suits caught up in rain that fell down on him. I feel like if Godzilla heard this tiny little man screaming at him, Godzilla would have turned around and like crushed him with his tail real quick. So I was like, "Why are you?" So that supports my idea that maybe this is a dream for Nomiko, right? Maybe he died multiple times, or different points in the film he did die, and we're just seeing his dream of whatever, or he's still in that coma from the boats. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Okay, I mean, I don't know, because this like him surviving this was a bit like out of reach
Yeah.
for me, thinking of the reality of it, because then right after the attack there are like nuclear I don't know, machine who like what is
Yep.
that called?
Like Geiger machines, they're checking out the nuclear waste or
Yeah, like
waste.
they're looking at the, you know, radiation level and it's like going through the roof.
Hmm.
So like if you're going to show that, then how come this man is alive and like didn't grow a third arm?
Right. Well,
I don't know.
not all nuclear sites are radioactive forever. Right. Like Chernobyl is radioactive for like the next 3,000 years because there's like waste permeated in the ground. But like a nuclear bomb might have nuclear radioactive fallout, but it doesn't last as long. Like you can
This
go
man
to.
was exposed to the fallout.
Okay. 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 I'm trying to support the film.
And also, like, if Godzilla is blowing up nuclear from like his mouth, I think it would be the deadly one.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that. Listen, it is once again, it's a film for a metaphor. Of course, some things won't make sense in it, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, after Godzilla destroys Ginza, like he disappears into the sea, and the of course the government, the Americans aren't going to help. Nobody else is going to help, and the people in the government, call all the men to come into like this town hall and talk about what they're going to do to kill Godzilla. And the smart guy from the boats with Koichi has this plan that they're going to release Freon around Godzilla in the sea to put him in the deepest part of the ocean. So that way the sea pressure will kill him. And if that doesn't kill him, they have this idea to attach balloons under his ass to make him come up very quickly. So that way he could die from not having decompressed fast enough after going that deep in the ocean. Some people are a bit skeptical because they're like, well, how do we know this will kill Godzilla? And smart guys like, I don't know. Well, we got no other choice. We got no guns. Bombs don't hurt it. This thing is a monster, so why not try that? And so, some of the people are like, we just fought in a war. We don't want to die. And so, the general says, anybody who doesn't want to do this, you're not conscripted. You can leave if you want to. And so some of the guys leave. But then one guy says, is there a 100% chance that we'll die in this? And smart guy says, no. And the guy says, well, those are better chances than the war. And everybody laughs. And then they all forget about the fact that they might die. And they say, well, I guess we'll fight Godzilla. Yeah, any comments on that scene?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that part of the theme of the movie
Hmm.
where they're like, when they're not forced to participate in a war, but they know like they have to do this thing to make the other people live, basically,
Hmm.
and have a future as humanity or as Japan and everything else. They are willing to do it by themselves, which is not something you do at war,
Hmm.
basically. So I like that distinction where they were given a chance and some of them said like, heck yeah, we'll do it
Hmm.
because we know like somebody has to do it.
Hmm.
So that's like much more noble than going into the army forced, right?
Yeah.
And I like that idea. Um, but I'm sorry, this is very unrelated,
Go ahead.
but I like the little like toy that they made for Godzilla. It's like so cute.
The Godzilla
But
floaty device to demonstrate
yeah,
how they're going to sink him.
yeah, that's cute. And yeah, it's basically like, I guess it gives a lot of tension, the fact that they don't know if this will kill Godzilla for sure, and they
Hmm.
just have to like test a theory out.
Yeah.
And the, backfire of it could be losing a lot of people, and people who are already like also like engineers, people who understand from war and yeah, things like that. So
Yeah, I like that scene where all the guys come together and there is that distinction between, okay, in the past we were forced to fight, now we're choosing to live or die as soldiers. And the only part I didn't like about that scene was like Koichi was about to leave and then everybody pauses to see what Koichi does. But I'm like, nobody knows who this guy is. Like, so why is everybody stopping? Other than like smart guy in the front and maybe his homies from the boat. Like, why did everybody stop to see what Koichi would do? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I guess they need everything they can get.
I guess so,
I
but just
mean,
some random guy.
I'm not sure. Maybe because he had a headband, like he was injured, they thought he was a big guy or something.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Everybody listened to the guy with the bandage on his head. He must know something. It's like guys with the eye patch. Like you automatically think like this is a badass. When maybe when
Yeah,
he was like 6, he just stabbed himself with a pencil.
yeah,
So
yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, so they all have this plan to like sink Godzilla. They only have like a few more days until Godzilla reappears, and Koichi says to his guys, I want to fly the plane that will distract Godzilla and bring him out there, but I need my guy, the mechanic that survived the Odo attack with me, to come. And the guys are like, we don't know where he is, we don't know how to find him. And Koichi, goes to everybody begging, please. And he like slams his head down on tables, bowing, which I guess is Japanese tradition. Slamming his head on like several different tables, saying, "Please help me find this man." And he ends up writing letters to as many people as he can that he has the names for from the island. And he writes a letter saying, like, "I'm sorry that you got killed. It's my fault you got killed." And when he's walking home one day, this man limping up behind him hits him with a stick, knocks him out, ties him up, and brings him in his house. And is really mad at him. And it's the guy from the island. I forgot his name. Do you remember?
Yeah, Tachibana.
Tachibana. So Tachibana is there. Is like, what the fuck are you writing? What are you saying? It's your fault. It's my fault. Whatever. And he like beating up Koichi in his house, and he's like, "I need you to help me, set up this plane. I want to put a bomb on it and blow it up because I believe if we're able to put a bomb inside Godzilla's mouth, we can finally kill it. And I'm ready to do the kamikaze mission." And Tamagotchi-san, whatever, he says, "I don't know."
Tachibana.
Tachibana says, "I don't know," and he like leaves him there or whatever. Also, by the way, like they show Koichi this fighter plane that they have, like it's the last fighter plane in Japan because once again all their weapons were taken away, and it's this really advanced like fighter jet, like the Ferrari of fighter jets. Really cool looking stuff. What did you think of those scenes?
First of all, like the whole idea of like the whole plan is very Japan. Because it's like, okay, there's this giant monster. We're going to sink it and then bring it back up. And that's going to explode him. Like, that's smart and very, like, passive warfare, which is cool. I appreciate it,
How would
because
Turkish people kill Godzilla?
throw kebab at it. I don't know. Possibly try something very Turkish.
They're gonna feed it like Adana food, like the spiciest thing in Adana. They're just gonna like try to put it in Godzilla's mouth.
Yeah, just like make him very fat until he explodes.
Yeah, like
Like just fuel
30,
him up with baklava, burek, kebab, everything.
30,000 Turkish grandmothers descended on Godzilla and kept feeding him and feeding him.
Yeah, just like make him so fat that he can't get up.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, I mean, I like it. It's sort of like giving a bit of a montage, that the scenes, the days leading up to the big battle, and everyone is hopeful, and everyone is like, yeah, we can do this. And if we don't, fuck it. Like if we all die, fuck it. And there's like that sense of we're doing this for the future generation.
Hmm.
But like also the sad part is like most of the time future generation also end up like right wing and stuff and like fuck up the country. So I don't know like how accomplished they would be.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I like it. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean, if you're saying like there's a possibility Koichi sacrifices his life just for Akiko to become like a fascist later when she grows up, I mean, that's always a possibility. But, I like the idea of these guys coming together saying, look, we're citizens. They keep saying this thing. We're not soldiers, we're citizens. And this is a citizen led effort to save our community, right? I don't even think I don't remember them saying like the nation. It's not about saving the nation anymore or the country. It's about saving us, like the people we care about, our families. And I like that more than saying we're going to die for this nation. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was the coolest part about like the whole thing. Yeah, I think that was my favorite theme in the movie,
Hmm.
of like this idea that if given the chance and if there's a necessity to help the future, some people will do it.
Hmm.
And they don't need this like brainwashing, this forcing from the government.
Yeah, this nationalism, you don't need that. Like, people
Yeah,
will come together to save ourselves. And humans, I believe, can overcome anything if we work together, right? And we don't need nationalism, patriotism to do it. We just need to see commonality.
yeah, like it's because it just feels like everything, every manipulation and secrecy that the government does, It
Hmm.
just like complicates it more,
Hmm.
because in the essence of, man or humanity, we will actually do what's necessary in
Yeah.
order to like continue our survival, basically.
Right.
And there has been like so many freedom fighters, scientists who already did that throughout the history
Yeah.
and put their lives on danger. Yeah.
How the government like hid the truth about Godzilla ended up causing all those people in Ginza to die, right?
Yeah.
And I think there is a little bit of overlap here in this film with like the Fukushima disaster in Japan, when I believe there was an earthquake there at a nuclear power plant in Japan, and the government knew it was leaking, but they didn't tell people for a while until the disaster got really big. And I think it also relates to Chernobyl as well, because Chernobyl was a big disaster that the Soviets tried to hide and say, oh, nothing is happening here, until it became too big to cover up, too. So, yeah, the people are finally coming together once they know something. The government thinks like, if people know the truth, we'll panic. No, like when people know the truth, we'll come together and find a solution. Don't try to stop us from doing that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Though I have one critique.
Hmm.
I know this is like supposed to be set in a certain time. I don't know like the exact date. I guess like
It's like
19
1940s,
nineteen
1945,
forties.
46.
Yeah, so I get the gender like things in that era. It's very patriarchal, right?
Hmm.
But at the same time, I wish there were also like some female characters in
Hmm.
the fight. I would really appreciate that. Because if you can imagine Godzilla, I think you can add like one or two females there.
I got you. I think, once again, patriarchal society at this point in time, like Sumiko is as much of a hero in this film as Koichi, right? I think Nomiko is as much of a hero in this film as Koichi or anybody else, too, because, this is traditional gender roles, and, the fact that the women are at home, like taking care of the next generation and helping the guys get back on their feet and organize. I think there's something to be said there. I'm not the type to promote traditional gender roles, but I think they played their part here for being necessary. I don't think the women's roles in this film are diminished just because
Yeah.
they're not shooting at Godzilla. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're not, but I wish they were like, I don't know, some mastermind woman, behind one of the machines or something.
Yeah.
Like instead of like the curly haired smart man, I wish it
Hmm.
was like a old Japanese woman, who was like teaching at a university. Like I don't
Yeah.
know.
Or
I
like
thought that.
the wisest woman on Odo, who was like, "We've known Godzilla for many years."
Yeah, yeah, like something like just something more than a woman being as like the caregivers,
Hmm.
because of
Yeah.
course their role is not diminished, because they're left a future.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, like it's not only men who can be like these type of heroes.
I got you. But remember, it's a new day, baby. Patriarchy's back, and everybody
We're
knows
not
their
on
place.
X, Simon.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we're on Fanbase. It's okay to be woke. Oh God, I'm allowed to be woke now. Oh God, I forgot how good this felt. Wow. Oh wow. Wait, racism is bad. I can say that now. Oh wow, this feels good.
Wow.
I didn't know this. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, what happens next in the story?
Basically, they're sort of like ready, and they get a signal from the boys. Boys, I don't know how to say that word.
The buoys.
The buoys, yes. And they're like, in 800 hours, Godzilla will be here.
Hmm.
So they basically tell everyone to go home and spend time with their families.
Hmm.
And yeah. So, and like, what was his name? I forgot to.
Koichi.
Tachibana.
Oh yeah, yeah, Tachibana.
Tachibana like fixes the fighter jet, like the
Yeah,
kamikaze jet, and he shows Koichi. So everything is kind of ready,
right,
and they
right.
know that Godzilla is coming. So everyone like goes home.
Yeah, yeah, and like Tachibana fixes up the plane with like a bunch of bombs. Like the plane has like one engine, one tank of gas, and like 30 bombs strapped up in it. Koichi is at home with Akiko, and he tells Akiko like mommy's not coming back, but I'm gonna be here for you. And he tucks like Akiko into bed after she like cries and stuff like that. and like leaves a note for Samiko, the woman next door. Akiko like gives that note to Samiko the next morning, and Samiko finds like a bunch of money in there, and Akiko said, and Koichi wrote in there, use this money to take care of Akiko, and yeah. What else? What else? Yeah. Tachibana tells Koichi that in the plane there's like this lever to pull to activate the bomb, and then he also tells Koichi something else, but we don't know what it is. And also, Samiko gets a note, a telegraph, and we don't know what it says too. So there's like two mysteries leading towards the finale of the film.
Yeah.
Any
But
comments on those?
they also like Koichi and Tachibana have like somewhat of an understanding, I would say,
Hmm.
when he's getting ready to fly it because yeah, like Tachibana sees that Koichi still has those pictures of the guys who died and their
Hmm.
families, and he somewhat like understands, why he didn't, drive the kamikaze, and also like I guess like he forgives him a little bit,
Yeah.
and also like appreciates like his courage for doing this now,
Hmm.
going on this mission. Basically, I like it. It was sentimental, and it was like, the tension is building up because Godzilla is coming.
Yeah,
So like in the
yeah,
back of my head I was like, when is he gonna show up, when is he gonna
yeah.
show up?
The only part I have to say about all of this is that Samiko is getting older, but she's also getting cuter. So how did that happen? And
Wow.
the second thing is like when Akiko started crying, it was very cringe because it was like I could tell like her parents were like off camera saying, "Okay, go," and then she's like did the fakest cry I've ever seen. That was kind of
Wow,
annoying.
no, Akiko is so cute.
Okay.
She is so cute.
She did grow up fast though. Like we saw her like as a newborn infant, and then like at 3 years old, like she has, she's grown. You know what I mean? It's very cute.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so the big day comes, and Godzilla's out there. He comes out to sea. They try to stop him with the mines, but the mines don't stop him. He starts stomping on land and crushing farms and villages and stuff like that. Koichi is in the airplane with the picture of Nomiko and his dash, and he flies out there and he's zooming around Godzilla, trying to get his attention, shooting at him a bit, getting close to his face, but never getting swiped up. And so he leads Godzilla out to sea. All the ships go out there and they're trying to encircle Godzilla after Godzilla like shoots his radiation beam at a decoy ship that they leave out there. So when Godzilla like, shoots his beams, he runs out of power and he needs to recharge. So they only have so much time to encircle him and get him with the Freon capsules. And it takes a lot of time, but they do it right before Godzilla can like shoot at them again with his lasers. And right before he's about to shoot, they turn on the Freon and he drops to the bottom of the sea. And by the time he drops to the bottom, he like turns off like an iPhone. Like all the all the blue in his back like disappears. Like the lights go out. It's like cute. It was that was actually kind of funny. And so all the Japanese people are like, "Oh, we did it!" And there's like a bit of silence, but then they get a tug on the ropes that showing Godzilla is still alive. So smart guy, the curly haired smart guy says, "Okay, time to pull him up now, now, fast, fast." And so they inflate the balloons under Godzilla's booty to make him shoot back up to kill him, but he gets stuck around like 800 meters below sea. And so they're like, "Oh no, what are we going to do? We have to bring him up quick before he naturally decompresses." And so, they're trying to pull him up, but they don't have enough power in their ships until they get some reinforcements. Some other Japanese people show up with more boats. They attach themselves to the boats and they start pulling up Godzilla. And Godzilla comes up and he is pissed. He is still alive and he is very angry. And
Somebody give her chocolate.
somebody give him chocolate. Somebody, help her out. But yeah, she is very angry. She is charging up her fire beams to like kill everybody. And there's this pause scene when everybody's looking at Blue Godzilla as he's about to shoot the nuclear power bomb from his throat. And Koichi comes at the last minute with the plane and flies it directly into Godzilla's mouth before he can shoot the beam. And then the plane blows up. And everybody's shocked because Godzilla's whole head is like gone, like zero. And yeah, everybody starts staring in amazement, and we see that there's a parachute there. Koichi parachuted out of the plane. He gets to live. Nobody died in this situation. And then we get a flashback saying that, showing that Tachibana showed Koichi an escape pod, basically an ejection button, so he could get out of the plane and not have to blow himself up. And all the Japanese men start saluting Koichi as he floats down to the sea, and Godzilla's body like bursts into beams of light and sinks to the bottom of the ocean. What did you think about those scenes?
Whew, okay. That's a lot. So my thoughts in these scenes. First of all, when we didn't even see Godzilla yet, and then we see a ship thrown into the base, and I'm like, oh fuck, like these people don't stand a chance. And they're
Yeah.
like, what do we do now? What do we do now? And Godzilla is like going into the town, into the city, and yeah, basically, I really like the shot when Godzilla is like in the mountains or something. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like the suburban area of the city,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, Koichi is like flying the plane around him. Those were like really cool shots, like the way he escapes his tail and things like that. That was definitely like, I was holding my breath there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, when he got into the water, I'm thinking like, okay, this plan is kind of dumb, like kind of childish, because like I didn't think it was gonna work because I knew like Koichi would have to do the ending strike.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't like hoping for like Godzilla dying, sinking, and things like that. And then when they blew him up again, it looked like he was wearing a tutu. So it was kind of like ridiculous and a bit childish, if you ask me. It was like, playing with him.
Uh-huh.
But also, one thing I was thinking, the way like how easily Koichi led him back to the water.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking like if, those people knew the first time, Godzilla attacked, what's the name of the city?
Ginza.
Ginza. They could have done the same thing. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the planes could have like led him back to the sea, at least to like stall people so they can evacuate. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. So it was like actually somewhat of an easy task
Mm-hmm.
to save more lives, at least. So I was like, oh, that's a shame. Like they could have did that the first time
Yeah.
and buy some time,
Mm-hmm.
basically. But yeah, and then the other ships showed up, which were the seas, the ships of the young guy,
Mm-hmm.
right, who was in their mining team, but they left him behind because they said, you're a kid, you're young, and you're the future of our country. So we're going to leave you back. And we are the old ones, we are going to fight. Which is like very cool because if you think about it, the way that governments do is they send younger people to war because
Mm-hmm.
they're easier to brainwash, they have like better health and things like that, and those people, those young guys, like just end up, dying.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you look at this, how this thing came up to be, and people sort of volunteered for the war with Godzilla, it was like the older guys who said, "Look, we're still like capable of doing this, so let us do it, and you young people stay behind and rebuild this country."
Yeah, it's a noble thing. Very noble thing right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. But anyway, the young guy ended up not listening to them, and like showed up with the ships, which like helped them at the end. But I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, I have no complaints with the ending, and I really like how it was shot. With it, they didn't make it over dramatic, right? Like they fly into Godzilla's mouth, brain blows up, and it's like you're just left there standing, like, "Wow, that's it." You know what I mean? It's like kind of anticlimactic, but fitting in a way. I like the way it ended with Godzilla dying like that, and I was genuinely shocked when I saw Koichi with the parachute. I did not expect that because I thought, he really wanted to redeem himself by killing himself.
Yeah.
So to see him alive, I think that is the perfect like bow on this film's theme. That the idea is like we want to celebrate life, we want to fight for what's right, but we don't want to die recklessly or carelessly because life is what's important. So I really like that. Really love it.
Yeah. There was a time in the movie where they were talking about, like, when we went to war with another country, the government didn't supply us with the right equipment. And
Hmm.
that's the reason why most of us died. Like, they
Hmm.
didn't have ejection buttons in fighter planes and
Hmm.
things like that. And what, like, Tachibana did was, yeah, like, it's okay to go into war to save your country, to save the future generation, but we don't need to make mindless mistakes
Yeah.
and just like throw away our lives just like trash.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So,
the
like,
sake of honor, for the sake of
yeah,
manliness, like killing yourself for those things is ridiculous,
yeah,
you
like
know?
you have to take every chance to make sure that you can stay alive
Yeah.
and still like fight basically,
Hmm.
which was cool. And I liked the shot where, like, Tachibana was listening with his like headphones, and when
Hmm.
he found out that like Koichi survived, he was happy and things like
Hmm.
that. So it felt like a beginning of a friendship.
Yeah.
I guess. And
So,
I think, sorry, one more thing.
yeah.
uh I like how Godzilla died because I felt like, because they, like, he flew into his mouth, he like he made the all the nuclear power in him get stuck,
Hmm.
and like he exploded himself a
Yeah.
little bit, but there
Yeah.
wasn't like a big giant sound. Like, it
Hmm.
wasn't in your face, and it was
Yeah.
like more, like you said, unbelievable moment.
Yeah, it was like he crumbled. It's like he fell apart under the his own weight of his power, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was necessary to blow up his head because his brain was there, you know? Like obviously his body is impenetrable, but you got to destroy his brain. And yeah, really liked how it ended. And Koichi, gets off of the boat like a hero, and everybody's clapping and celebrating. And Samiko is there, and she brings the telegraph. And Koichi can't believe it. What it says? It says that Nomiko is alive. So he rushes to some hospital where she's at, and I believe he has Akiko with him, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, he bursts into the hospital, and Nomiko is like bandaged up. She has like one eye maybe, and she says to Koichi, "Is your war finally over? Is your war finally done?" And Koichi like breaks down and cries and says like, "Yes, yes, it's over." And he like gives her a hug, and it's like a very happy ending, Hollywood ending. And
Until we have the final scene.
yeah, until the final scene when we see that Godzilla's body is like breaking down in the ocean, but it's also regenerating, like slowly rebuilding, getting ready for the sequel, right? So,
Yeah, I think it
yeah,
was his heart or something. Like, it felt
yeah,
like something was pumping.
yeah, yeah. So that's the end of the movie. Once again, I really liked it, and I really enjoy it more now that I got to talk about it. This film has a lot of themes. It's cliche in the sense that it ends on a very happy note. The good guy wins. He gets the girl. Everybody gets to fade off into the sunset, happy, holding hands. But it does deal with a lot of the trauma of war, the dishonesty of our governments, the stupidity of nationalism and dying for patriotism. So there's a lot of themes in here I really like. I really, once again, love how it's shot. The scenes of Godzilla are always terrifying. The cinematography is beautiful. Acting is great, except for Akiko and her crying. But other than that, I really, really like this film. I got to give it maybe like a nine, a nine.
Okay. Yeah, for me, even though I understand like everything Godzilla stands for, I kind of enjoyed it talking about it more
Hmm.
than watching it. Honestly, I mean, it's not a bad movie. I wouldn't say it's like horrible or boring or whatever. Though I did get like a bit frustrated in the beginning. Like, I didn't know where it was actually going, and I felt like I could predict the ending, which I kind of did, but not like
Hmm.
it. It didn't happen exactly the way I saw it, basically.
All right.
And there were like other sentimental and psychological parts that were added to it, which made it better. But overall, I'm just like, this is not my type of movie.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm gonna give it like a seven.
Okay. I feel like there's a part of you that doesn't like it also because like maybe you think it's like a guy film, war film, action film. But I feel like this is like, you know, it's not as masculine and broy as maybe like a Fast and the Furious or like even Alien Romulus. Like I feel like Alien Romulus was more like, bro action than this. You know what I mean? This feels more sensitive.
Mm, I mean, in Alien Romulus, there were female characters,
Hmm.
so that made it more relatable for me, at least. And the thing is, like, I don't think like the reason I don't like it is not because I think it's a bro movie.
Hmm.
Because when I think of bro movie, I think like Hangover.
Hmm.
But I just don't get as excited as when I see like Godzilla. Like
Okay.
how guys get, I don't know, like, yeah, like that shit is sexy. I don't know, like, I feel like you guys get excited on a different level. And to
Hmm.
me, that just does not happen.
Okay.
But yeah, that's what I'll say about it. I
Okay.
don't know. There was
Okay.
just like, yeah, there were sentimental parts, there was drama involved, there was psychology, trauma involved. But yeah, it, I explained
Okay.
it. So yeah, I'm
I
not
got you.
gonna
I
say
got you. I mean, there aren't that many psychological monster horror films, so I feel like this might have been something you like. And but either way, I'm glad that you watched it, and we could talk about it, and chop it up. And the point of these reviews is to talk about the themes, find things we agree on and disagree on, etc. So, yeah.
yeah. Last thing, fire music.
Fire music. Dun 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 dun
Dun,
dun
dun,
dun
dun,
dun.
dun.
When that cello section hits in that song,
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool.
no, that cello goes off. He goes off
Yeah.
whenever that.
Even
Yeah,
if you don't watch the movie, listen to the soundtrack.
yeah. Soundtrack is fire. Soundtrack is fire. And yeah, well, this has been fun, and hopefully everything went well in the recording of this review. I have the computer on the entire time, sound on, so it should be well. And shout out to everybody that joined, though you didn't speak. I didn't give any announcement for this film, but for future films, we'll be announcing them, talking about them, and stuff like that. And once again, thank you, Akdi, for joining in.
Thank you as well. I mean, you gave me different perspectives about this movie, which
Hmm.
sort of that's why I said it was more fun talking about it than watching it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you because you have the best takes. And yeah, for anybody listening to this in the playback, send movies that you want us to review. And we have Ghost in the Shell, which is a fan request that we've been waiting to do for a while. And we're going to knock that out. And y'all be easy out there. Simon and Acti on Fanbase, episode 91. Peace.